Llenando el vacío. El logo de Uniting for Suicide Postvention aparece en la pantalla. Se enseña un supervisor presentando enseguida de unas gráficas.
During this video, we will provide a brief overview on how to assemble and then utilize a workplace suicide postvention team. One of the best ways to make sure that your workplace is equipped to respond and support your employees after a death by suicide is to establish a team of employees that serve on your workplace's suicide postvention team.
Texto en la pantalla. Asembla tu equipo de postvention.
When developing your suicide postvention team and suicide postvention process, two important recommendations to consider are to incorporate stakeholder feedback and to consult best practices. Ensure that your process allows for and incorporates key stakeholder feedback. For example, consult with HR, management, and employees to ensure that your process meets the diverse needs within your workplace. If possible, assemble a work group with key workplace stakeholder representatives. These individuals can provide critical information to strengthen your suicide postvention process. Consult published guidelines and best practices within the field. Some examples include National Action Alliance for Suicide Prevention's U.S. National Guidelines on Responding to Grief, Trauma, and Distress after a Suicide, and A Manager's Guide to Suicide Postvention in the Workplace. Remember that this is a process. Depending on your workplace, you may need to start small and grow as needed. By committing to addressing suicide postvention within the workplace, you are playing a key role in suicide prevention and are improving the well-being of your employees. After consulting with key stakeholders and existing resources, the next step is to determine who will serve on your suicide postvention team. Representativeness, nominations, logistics, and experience are 4 suggestions to consider when building team members. Representativeness. Ensure that you include employees from different work groups, positions, and backgrounds. Nominations. Ask employees to nominate trusting and supporting colleagues that they would feel comfortable leaning on during challenging times. This can help you identify strong employees that may have an inherent skill set that would lend itself nicely to the suicide postvention team. Logistics. Workplace day-to-day demands and employees being out of the office for work travel or personal reasons may create a situation where suicide postvention team members may not be available to mobilize after a suicide. For this reason, ensure that your suicide postvention team is staffed with coverage in mind. This allows you to build a network of team members that can support one another in their roles and safeguards against the likelihood that all team members are unavailable. Consider providing ad hoc flexibility to team members' schedules so that they can prioritize suicide postvention team duties over workplace commitments as needed and appropriate, given job demands. Experience. Although not necessary to be a strong suicide postvention team member, employees that have experienced suicide loss may provide an invaluable contribution when providing support to others following a loss. Once you have assembled a suicide postvention team, ensure that team members are adequately trained so that they feel confident and comfortable executing your workplace suicide postvention plan.
Texto en la pantalla. Entrenando a tu equipo de postvention.
2 important things to consider are who will oversee the training and what training content should be included. Who could oversee the training? A workplace leader who is well versed in suicide postvention could provide training for suicide postvention team members. Alternatively, a workplace may reach out to the community to elicit support for training. Community mental health centers or other organizations that are exposed to suicide loss, such as first responders, might be able to offer suggestions and support. National trainings are also available, and additional resources can be found at Uniting for Suicide Postvention. What should the training consist of? Suicide postvention training should include psychoeducation on common responses following suicide loss, the potential short and long-term impacts of suicide loss, the role of stigma surrounding suicide loss, ways to support and help promote growth, identification of local and national resources, and helper tools, listening, validating, and empathy. Now that you have assembled a team and have provided training, your team can mobilize and assist with critical elements of a suicide postvention process.
Elementos del proceso de suicidio postvention.
Notify. After a workplace has received verification of a death by suicide, the suicide postvention team can assist with the notification to employees after permission to disclose has been determined. team members may be responsible for carrying out this notification or could assist managers in ensuring a factual, sensitive, and accurate notification to employees. Educate. The suicide postvention team can provide information on common reactions following a loss by suicide, suggestions for self-care, and connect employees to resources. They can also provide information to employees on any workplace processes or policies, such as internal reviews, that may occur given the loss. Unite. The suicide postvention team can help create a safe place for employees to mourn collectively to promote healing. For example, they could organize an informal, optional meeting for employees to jointly process the loss shortly following the death and coordinate ways for employees to honor the life lost over time. Outreach. A suicide postvention team member can coordinate the outreach to family members to offer workplace condolences. The team can also provide individual support to employees that are impacted by the loss, including information about employee assistance programs. Sustain. The grieving process following suicide loss does not have a specific timeline. Because of this, the suicide postvention team can be a resource for support during anniversaries, holidays, and other workplace events that might be especially challenging for suicide loss survivors in the workplace. Additionally, the team can be tasked with evaluating and revising the workplace suicide postvention process, which, at a minimum, should occur annually. Ensuring that your workplace has a suicide postvention plan is essential to supporting and taking care of employees. Developing a suicide postvention team can help meet this need. We hope that this brief overview has highlighted accessible steps to building your suicide postvention plan. Please visit the Uniting for Suicide Postvention website for additional support, guidance, and resources.
Texto en la
Thank you
pantalla.
for taking
Por
an
favor,
active role
visite
in suicide prevention.
www.miric.va.gov, /inversa, VISN 19, /inversa, Postvention.